You check your account 3 days after payday, and it's already down to almost nothing. No big purchases, no emergency. No wild night out, just gone. If that's ever happened to you, here's the uncomfortable truth. It's probably not your income that's the problem. Talk to enough people earning modest salaries and people earning six figures, and you'll notice something strange. A huge number of them feel exactly the same financial stress at every income level. That's because how money leaves your hands often matters more than how much of it arrives in the first place. Two people can earn the exact same salary and end the month in completely different positions. One stressed and scraping by, the other calm and actually building something, and the gap between them usually isn't luck. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 money mistakes that quietly keep ordinary, hard-working people broke, no matter how much they earn. These aren't rare mistakes. They're common, they're sneaky, and most people don't even realize they're making them until they see the pattern laid out clearly. And mistake number 5 is the one almost nobody talks about, the one hiding underneath the other 4. So stick around, because that one alone might explain more about your money than anything else in this video. Let's start with mistake number 1. Spending based on what hits your account, not what you actually need. Here's what this looks like in real life. Payday arrives, the number in your account looks bigger than it's felt in weeks, and suddenly that number feels like permission. A few small purchases here.
A takeout order there, maybe.
An upgrade you'd been thinking about. None of it feels reckless in the moment. But add it up over a month, and you'll often find that a huge percentage of your income disappeared on things you can't even remember buying. The fix here isn't extreme restriction, it's a simple shift. Before you spend a single rupee or dollar from a fresh paycheck, decide in advance where it's going. Many people who successfully build savings report using some version of a plan where a portion goes to essentials, a portion goes to future goals, and only what's left is treated as truly free to spend. When the plan comes before the spending, the leftover guesswork disappears. And here's the part that surprises people the most. This isn't about tracking every single transaction with a spreadsheet for the rest of your life. It's about making the decision once, at the start of the month, instead of making dozens of small, tired decisions every single day when your willpower is lowest. By the end of a long day, most people have already made hundreds of small decisions. What to eat, what to reply, what to prioritize, and financial willpower is often the first thing to run out. That one shift alone, deciding first instead of reacting later, is often the difference between a month that feels controlled and a month that feels like it controlled you. Mistake number 2 is treating debt like it's just a normal part of life instead of a fire that needs putting out. High-interest debt, especially credit card debt, is one of the most quietly destructive forces in personal finance. Here's why. The interest doesn't take a day off. It compounds whether you're paying attention or not, which means the longer a balance sits, the more of your future income is already spoken for before you even earn it. A lot of people fall into the trap of making only minimum payments because it feels manageable month to month. But minimum payments are often structured so that the bulk of your payment covers interest first, and only a small piece touches the actual amount you borrowed. Based on how compound interest works, this can stretch a small debt into a years-long burden, turning what started as a manageable expense into something that quietly shadows every financial decision you make afterward. The fix isn't complicated, even if it isn't always easy. Prioritize paying off the highest interest debt first, while maintaining minimums on everything else, and treat any extra income, a bonus, a tax refund, a side gig payment, as an opportunity to attack that balance directly instead of letting it blend into everyday spending. Some people also find motivation in paying off their smallest balance first, just to feel that early win, and then rolling that payment into the next debt. Either approach can work. What matters far more than the exact method is simply having a method at all, instead of letting the debt sit there quietly growing in the background while you hope it somehow sorts itself out. The moment you stop treating debt as background noise and start treating it as a project with a deadline, everything about how you manage money starts to shift. Mistake number 3 is having no separation between your emergency fund and your everyday spending money. This one seems small, but it causes enormous stress. Life doesn't ask permission before it throws a surprise expense at you, a car repair, a medical bill, and an unexpected trip home. When there's no dedicated buffer for moments like that, people are often forced to reach for credit cards or loans just to get through a situation that wasn't even that big to begin with. And that's how emergencies turn into long-term debt. Financial educators commonly suggest building toward a buffer that could cover a few months of essential expenses. But here's the honest truth. You don't need to hit that number overnight. What actually matters is starting, even with a small, consistent amount set aside separately, somewhere you won't casually dip into it for everyday spending. This fund works best when it's a little inconvenient to access. A separate account may be at a different bank than your everyday spending account, so there's a natural pause between "I want to spend this" and actually being able to. There's also a psychological shift that happens once this buffer exists, even a modest one. The next unexpected bill stops feeling like a crisis and starts feeling like an inconvenience, and that difference alone can change how calmly you make every other financial decision that month. Mistake number 4 is chasing lifestyle upgrades every time your income goes up, sometimes called lifestyle inflation. It's incredibly common, which is exactly why it's dangerous, because it feels completely normal. You get a raise, and almost immediately your expenses quietly rise to match it. A better apartment, a nicer car, more frequent takeout, subscriptions you don't really use but forgot to cancel. Individually, none of these choices seem irresponsible. But together, they can trap you in a cycle where your income keeps growing and your savings rate stays exactly at zero. The people who build real financial stability aren't necessarily the ones who earn the most. Often, they're the ones who kept their spending relatively steady even as their income increased, and redirected that gap toward savings, debt payoff, or investing. The fix here isn't to never enjoy your success. It's to be intentional. When your income rises, decide in advance what percentage of that increase you'll actually let upgrade your lifestyle and send the rest toward your future. Some people use a simple rule of splitting any raise or bonus roughly in half, letting themselves enjoy one part while automatically directing the other part towards savings or debt. That way, celebrating a win and building long-term security aren't in conflict with each other. It's worth noticing how quietly this mistake creeps in. Nobody consciously decides to spend their entire raise. It just happens one small upgrade at a time, until a year later the extra income has vanished. And nothing about your financial position has actually improved. And now, mistake number 5, the one that doesn't get talked about nearly enough, never learning even the basics of how money actually works. Most of us were never formally taught how interest, debt, saving, or investing function. So we learn by trial and error, often expensive error, or worse. We absorb financial habits simply by copying the people around us, without ever questioning whether those habits are actually working. This knowledge gap is why so many people feel like they're bad with money, when really, they were just never given the tools to understand it. And this is the mistake that quietly causes all the other 4, because once you understand how compound interest works for you, when you save and against you when you're in debt, once you understand the psychology behind why we spend when we feel a paycheck land, everything else starts to make sense. The fix is simple, and honestly, it's why a channel like this exists. Spend a little time regularly learning how money works, from reliable, verified information, not random social media hot takes. Even 15 or 20 minutes a week can shift how you see every financial decision in front of you. Think of it less like a chore and more like maintenance. You wouldn't drive a car for years without ever checking the engine, and yet most of us go our whole working lives without ever really checking how our own finances actually function under the hood. And the honest truth is, this kind of understanding compounds too, just like interest does. The more you learn this year, the easier every financial decision becomes next year, until things that once felt confusing, taxes, interest rates, investment basics, start to feel almost obvious. So here's where that leaves us. 5 mistakes: spending without a plan, letting high-interest debt sit and grow, having no emergency buffer, letting your lifestyle expand every time your income does, and never taking the time to actually understand how money works. Notice something about all 5. Not one of them is about being lazy or careless or bad with numbers. Every single one is about a system, or the lack of one. Nobody sits down and decides, I want to be broke this year. It happens gradually, through small, invisible defaults, spending what's left instead of saving what's planned, letting debt sit instead of attacking it, letting lifestyle creep in instead of directing it on purpose. Which also means the fix isn't about becoming a different person overnight. It's about changing a handful of defaults, one at a time, until they start working for you instead of against you. None of these mistakes make you bad with money. They make you human, because almost everyone has made at least one of them, often without even realizing it. You don't have to fix all 5 at once. In fact, trying to fix everything simultaneously is often how people burn out and give up within a few weeks. Pick the one that hit closest to home while you were watching this, and start there this week. Give yourself 30 days on just that one change before you move to the next. Small, consistent shifts, repeated over months, are what actually build financial stability, not dramatic overnight transformations that don't last past the first tough week. And if you slip up somewhere along the way, that doesn't mean the plan failed. It just means you're human, so you adjust and keep going. Before you go, one honest note. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Everyone's situation is different, so please consult a licensed financial advisor before making any major financial decisions. If this helped you see your own spending a little more clearly, that's exactly what this channel is here for. No hype, no guaranteed returns, just real, verified information you can actually use, one video a week. So hit subscribe if you want the next mistake before it costs you money, and tell me in the comments which of these 5 hit closest to home. I read every single one, and that's usually where the next video comes from. Take care of your money, and I'll see you in the next one.